If I could personify joy, it would be what's on my face right now. If you're watching on YouTube or you're on Spotify, you can see me, but if you're on Apple, you can actually just hear my voice. But I hope that you can hear the joy in my voice right now because I chased this woman down. I saw her on LinkedIn and I saw her book. I clicked the link. I had it Amazon delivered. I think it delivered in the same day. I sat down. I read slow. I barely even got through grade school. But I tell you, with her book, I grabbed it. I consumed it so fast. I was writing every single thing. I was annotating. And it was one of the most refreshing books that I've ever read because it was all meat, but also is probably one of those things where I wanted to read it by myself because I didn't want everyone else around me to see all the shortcomings that I had because she was laying out the blueprint for the speaking industry in a way that I had never, ever seen. And then when we got on the call today, a lot of times people are good from a distance, but when you get up close, you're like, oh, well, I would have much rather just seen you from a distance. And it's incredible because the energy, the heart, the love that she has, not only for the industry that she's in, but for the people inside that industry. And she just said to me, Christa was just saying that if a person is just about going out and trying to take their craft and just trying to make money, she's not the one to be able to coach you. But if you want to really make a difference, craft your story, take it to the next level, she can help you. She helps people to go from no name to the Hall of Fame. Now, that sounded like a bumper sticker to me until we started talking. And when I was reading in her book, Become a Bookable Speaker, it was unreal. She's the CEO and founder, which if you have those titles, you know you're important, of the C agency. Her A Gift Back to the Industry is Bookable. It's an event that I missed the last time because I was waiting for my invitation and Christa didn't send it to me in a gold envelope. But she wants to give back to the industry in the way that it's given to her. And it's just my honor, my pleasure. I've been waiting. I tell you, I thought that I had her book, Become a Bookable Speaker. I thought that I had it in my office. And then I ran back to my house from the studio because I wanted to show her almost like I was showing up with my homework. Hey, Christa, I read the book. And I'm applying every single thing inside of it. And so it's just my honor and my pleasure to bring to you, I think, one of the people that I've been more excited about than anything to be able to have her on the podcast. I chased her down, and what I want you to understand, guys, is the simplest way to get to know people that you don't know is force them to be your friend. And this is what I told Christa. I said, I'm going to force you to be my friend for the rest of your life. And what's the worst possible thing that could happen? She could just say no. And guess what? She already wasn't my friend. But I tell you, she can't get rid of me now. And I'm so excited to be able to share her with you. So why don't we get this party started?
Nothing more on my mind. I got two shines, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised. Over and over and over again. Make no mistake, we continue to win. Defeat never known, cause I will not lose. They wanna mimic my moves, but can't walk in my shoes.
Transform your life.
My goodness. My head is not even going to fit in the screen. I'm going to have to move my chair back. Like this is amazing. I'm the one who's lucky. You're so cool. Did you see that intro? How cool you are?
No. Hey, Christa, but I said one of your nails on the chalkboard words that I actually had on my. I saw you cringe when I said it. And what sucks is when I read your book, as I was reading it, I was like, I hope she doesn't check my website because I had like 3 of the words, which I want you to share right now. I had like 3 of the words and they were forefront on some of the websites. And I was like, oh my gosh, Christa is going to smack me. What are those words?
You know what? Well, listen, they may even be outdated by now, but probably Game Changer was in there. right? Guru might have been on the list. Did you have
Yes.
Guru?
Yeah. I didn't say
And
guru. I don't like guru. I mean, yeah, yeah.
it's too much.
That's too
No,
much.
and gosh, transformative is now on the list because you can't say trend. And you know what else is on my list now? This is
What's
going to
that?
break a bunch of people's hearts. Move the needle.
Oh
Oh, it's everywhere, dude. And it's happening so fast because of social media. These words are everywhere. And don't even make AI try and keep up because you're like, hey, can you just, just write this little thing and I'll massage it later. I'm like, stop saying game changing, stop saying move the needle. It's like, no more cliches.
So this was the interesting thing for me too, Krista, is because my I guess is my uncle by marriage. So my uncle by marriage coaches in the MLB, right?
Oh, cool.
And I asked him, I said, okay, so how do you coach a professional athlete? And he said, you don't coach them, you ask them questions. I said, well, tell me more. He said, the difference between a home run and a foul ball is about that much. Like, for those of you listening, I'm holding up and it's very, very small. And I said, well, and he said, the hitter who hit the ball knows how they felt. And then I ask them the question and then they adjust accordingly. And I said, so what's the difference between a professional that makes it into the league and the guy that doesn't? And he said, honestly, it's about that much. What's the difference between a speaker who makes it and then the person who maybe has the same ability but doesn't go to that level?
That's such an apt description, actually. And I'm going to invoke a story about my brother that isn't in the book. It's not one that I've told before, but it's so my brother is a Hall of Fame speaker in 2 countries, and he was in the 1992 Winter Olympics in Albertville, France, and that's what propelled him into the speaking industry. Was his story about that and how he went from recreational skier to Olympic athlete in 4.5 years. And it wasn't athletic prowess; it was mental, training, peak performance training. So very much what you're talking about is like, I ask them questions, I get them to think about it. But he said, one of his stories about people who win in the Olympics and people who lose in the Olympics, when you're in speed skiing, he gave the exact amount. He said, it's like the people who win, the people who lose are, like a pencil away from like the length of a pencil. And he said, I was a pencil and an eraser. Like I was just that close. It was the eraser part. So that just reminded me of what you just said, because there really is just such a tiny, tiny, tiny difference, but it means everything. And to me, it boils down to, like, we're going to get into it right away. It boils down to who you're doing this for. Are you doing it to serve yourself as a speaker so that you can get up and get the applause? Or are you doing it to be in service to the planner who hired you and put their neck on the line, or the CEO who wrote a check and their business depends on it, to that audience who carved out time out of their schedule away from their family because they either had to or decided it's time for some professional development? If you're going to take up space on a stage as a speaker, the number one thing you better do is honor the people that have invested their time and money and sometimes their career, have betted on that speaker. And so that to me is the difference between a bookable speaker and one that needs to put down the microphone and evaluate why they're doing this.
What about the friction points? Because as I read through, and I'm going to refer to it, I've got it here with me.
That's so
and
cool.
I'm gonna review. I want to tell you, actually, this would be interesting. I want to see, because
Okay.
I read it and I annotated. I want to. Good Lord, I couldn't even get through the foreword before I annotated. So, speaker, I annotated speaker Hall of Fame, which interested me, which I thought was pretty cool. And then let me see, my eyes are going because I'm almost 50.
Woo.
And then it was Canadian Speaker Hall of Fame. So are there?
That's
That's
my brother we're talking about. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, my brother Vince wrote the foreword. So he's really he and his wife are the reason I'm in this industry at all, for sure.
But help me with the friction. Help me with the friction points, because when you talked about it, making the transition so smooth, whether it be to, like, when you sent out your bio or you sent out all those, like, the friction point was 0. How important is that to diminish the friction points when you're working?
Well, there's a lot to unpack in all of that. So first of all, the Hall of Fame, yes, there's Hall of Fame, I think probably like global speakers Federation, I think it's called GSF, has a Hall of Fame. I'm not sure, but it's really honoring the people in the industry that have done like really significant things in the industry over a long period of time. And my brother has most definitely done that. So we did that for CAPS, which is Canadian Association of Professional Speakers. Oh, and there's one in Australia too. And I'm probably missing a lot, so my apologies to them. But then the National Speakers Association as well has their CPAE, which is Certified Professional Award of Excellence. So that's Hall of Fame in 2 countries for him. So the friction points, if we're talking about friction points for event planners, a friction point, like the biggest friction point, is doing things quickly, right? So I actually say in the book that you need to respond to a lead in any business. This was actually a study done by a speaker named Jay Baer, and it's, you know, a marketing study that he did. It's been back in 2020, but I can't imagine it's changed much. It's probably only gotten worse, actually. But people who respond in 5 minutes have, let's say 5 or 6x more chance of landing that deal than people who wait 10 to 15 to 20 minutes.
Wow.
So that friction point is time sensitivity. If you don't get back to a lead right away, your chances of them moving on to another speaker, especially in 2025 and beyond, is really a big friction point. So time sensitivity, I can't even think of anything that compares to that. Yeah. Actually, you know, obviously make it efficient and make it about them. You know, going back to my very first point already, it's got to be about them from the jump. Speakers who reach out to me and they make it about themselves, you're so good. Like, you are so good. You reached out and you're like, Christa, you matter. Like, I like you. You know, I read your book. It's about you. It's, you know, you're a successful guy, Kelly. This is no new rodeo for you. You know how to connect with people, and that's by making it about them. And so any speaker who responds quickly obviously is honoring that person's time and responds appropriately and professionally and making it about them. It's honoring their request and who they are as a person.
Where did you learn these kind of principles? Because I could tell you this, as I read through, being in different industries throughout my, 2 major industries, the speaking industry now, and then the professional beauty industry. But I've consulted with restaurants, I've consulted with hotels, consulted on all these realms. Your book is a blueprint, not just for speakers, but for business at large.
Mm-hmm.
How?
I've heard that.
Where did you learn these principles? Were these from mom and dad? I'm going to lean over because my eyeballs, I've got to read your book, so I've got to grab my glasses, but please tell me, please tell me where these principles came from.
Gosh, you know, is it nature versus nurture? You know, like, I mean, I think I probably grew up in an environment that either did it or didn't. I don't know. I know that I like when people make it about me because it just feels better. So I do have a way of thinking about what I think about. And if I'm thinking about something, I figure that's probably a good rule to apply to other people. I really don't know where I learned it, but I know that I'm a different person than I used to be. And I think I used to be very selfish, as we kind of probably all are growing up, right? The world revolves around you when you're a teenager. I have 3 dogs. They are going to go nuts because I have a lot of energy in my voice right now. They're like, this must mean something.
People love dogs. It's a stat that I'm making up for this conversation. 75% of people prefer podcasts with dogs in the background. So we're in good company.
I mean, listen, and it's times 3. 1 is in a coma and 2 are wrestling with each other. And I love it, honestly. I wouldn't have it any other way.
What kind of dogs do you have?
Oh, they're all kind of mutts. There's like, you know, a pity mix, and then like an Australian, like herding cattle dog. And then, and then I've got one other.
What are the names? What are the names?
Manny, Manchas, when I got him from the rescue. Okay. Sadie and Spike is.
You just named 4.
No, I know. Well, I know. Manny is the same as Manchas. Pardon me.
Oh, got it. That was confusing there for a second there, Christa.
Yeah, I know.
I was going to call you to the table.
Thank you for talking about my dogs. Well, and actually in the book, let's bring it back. I just actually, I had the book. What was I looking at? Oh, I was looking because I offer the first chapter for free. And so I ran across it online somehow. And I was like, oh, I should probably read this. Like, what's online for free? And there's an acknowledgement to my dogs. I'm like, and it just feels right that I put this in here, but they did nothing. So I even mentioned these.
I want to go back to that part of it as far as like when you were looking at how you could make it about them. Was there a time in your life early on where maybe you had experiences where people didn't, where you didn't feel seen or you didn't feel heard that caused you to want to serve people at the way that you are serving them now?
If I had to take it back, I think, so I have an education degree. I have an arts degree with a double major in music and theology, and I have a education degree in elementary music. So I think maybe there was some education where you have to make it about the students. You have to make it about other people and keep them engaged, or else you're done for. So if you can make each student feel seen and heard, then I think that probably is good. I'm really trying to steer clear of the fact that the world is filled with narcissists, and the speaking industry is kind of a unique concentration of people who have narcissistic tendencies, just because.
The speaking industry? Really?
Well, and the entertainment industry and the music industry, and anybody who can step with any kind of authority onto a stage or in front of a camera has to think they're pretty special. You and me included, okay? You and I both have narcissistic tendencies, and don't try and tell me anything other.
Hey, I'm the youngest child, so
I am too.
I understand. Okay, but so you took us back to college side, but let's go back to young Christa.
Ooh, okay.
Let's go back to young Christa, because it's always fascinates me whenever somebody serves at a high level, right?
Yeah.
And has the type of heart that you do. Most of the time, you almost were the person who needed the thing that you're giving, right? And so when I say this, like, we do a thing called Speaking Life. And what Speaking Life is, and I tell you, it's gold. Christa, we built a company on it, and now we do a men's group, and I've tried it at different engagements that I've spoke at, but it's using somebody's name and then saying something specific about them that inspires you, right? So, and I tell you, people light up. I even do it with flag football, right? So in doing that, what I found is for me as a young kid, there was times where I did stuff that I thought was really cool that people didn't say, that was cool. When you go back to young Christa, was there those things that kind of almost started to be able to trigger it?
Well, when you grow up in a family, and I just put my finger on this actually recently, right before my last Bookable Speakers event, which was in February.
Are you rubbing it in? Are you rubbing it in that I didn't
No,
get a chance to go to that one?
you're invited in May. I already told you, May 4th to 6th.
Well, when I went to fill out the application, like, there was armed guards showed up to my door and watched me while I was filling it out. And I was like, sir, why do you have dark glasses on and a dark suit and you have 5 people with you? They said, we got to make sure that you're the right fit for Christa. And I was like, wow, okay, cool. So
it's a good, I know I had some speakers at the last event. They're like, all these other classes are like a public golf course, and yours is like a country club.
Damn right.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, it's like, I just take it so seriously. And actually, my husband is all over me, and he may have finally gotten through to me. He's all over me to be a little less like that. I want the right people in the room. So I just, listen, we are all a big bag of water and scar tissue, right? From all the things that have happened in our lives. So I just am just so picky. But now that you're my friend,
don't not be picky. While I was reading it again, everything that I've, I feel like I know you. We haven't met in person, but we're here now. Yeah. But everything was a secret Mickey for me. All through your book, it was secret Mickeys. It was like you were dropping a principle and saying, don't just apply this to what I'm talking about, dummy. Apply this to your entire life in any way that you interact. And so I wanted to be a better husband, be a better dad. But let's go
Goodness.
back to young Christa, because I don't,
All
you
right.
can't get away from it.
I know it's three times. I've
Let's
already tried
go.
to.
I know. I see you. I see you trying to
All
go,
right.
like, and
Okay. All right.
that's why we're digging in.
So here's the topography of the map of my family, if you will. So my grandparents on my mom's side were born in Ireland and immigrated to Canada. My grandparents on my dad's side were born in Italy and had 4 kids and then immigrated to Canada. So the family of Irish Italian, first generation Canadian Irish Italian, um, is an explosive environment, let's just say. My brother Vince says we'd be great lovers if we could ever stay sober, which is a terrible thing to say, but because we're Irish Italian, you can say it, right? It's me.
Yes.
So so my parents got married in 1960, 1959, 1960, had my brother Vince like literally 9 months and 3 days later. It was very funny. And then had my brother Stephen 1 year and 17 days later. So they were what you'd call Irish twins. So they had their family of absolute chaos for 7 years. And then all of a sudden, I think I'm a whoopsie daisy. My mom keeps saying, oh no, you were very planned for. Yeah, I bet. But I will say that so 7 years later, along comes the only girl in the family, and they are hard cooked into their cycle of, from a baby girl's perspective, with brothers that like my earliest memory is when they're like preteens, teens, like they're crazy, right? And it's just a kind of a chaotic environment. My dad was a kind of a celebrity television personality, especially in Western Canada. He worked for CBC for a long time, and then he founded Shaw Cable. He co-founded Shaw Cable. He was a vice president of programming with Jim Shaw, and Shaw Cable is like the oh crap, I don't know. I don't even know. But it's like one of the biggest cable networks in Canada. So he was on air. He was a bit of a celebrity. And my mom did a lot of big things. And my brothers were just absolutely larger than life. So, and I remember just climbing trees and sitting up there and hiding. I really do. Like, I remember going up and singing songs and just climbing trees, and then, enter what I know. You just told me how old you are. So you were raised by wolves as well in the 80s, right? Mm-hmm. Yes. The 80s there is no word of a lie that we were like raised by wolves. It was such a crazy time to be alive and a teenager. And so I think anytime you can, like, it's an obvious advantage for me to have those kind of survival skills, and to what I like to call FSO, is to figure stuff out. And you're able to figure stuff out, but it's also, to be very pointed answer, it's also a very lonely existence when you're the youngest girl of a family born into chaos. And I'm no introvert, but this little extroverted, lonely girl would climb trees and try and find sisters in every friend she had. And so anytime it feels like someone's not like a lifer for me or super loyal, I've just put them at a distance. And so there's a real need for me to pour into people, I think, for a little bit of survival, but also I want to model that kind of behavior to receive that as well. So I think if you want to get real into it, there it is.
Well, talk to me about the fork, because there's a fork in the road where when that kind of stuff happens, that's either one of two things. We alluded to them earlier. You either go the narcissistic way, like everything's about me and I'm going to become the star, or you shed light on everyone else, which ultimately ends up shedding the light on you, but it's a longer path. Yeah. Yeah. Did you consciously choose that, or when that fork happened, or how did that transpire?
I think growing up in a family of people who already had the spotlight on them, that was the safer way to be, was to continue to just play into them having the spotlight on them. Honestly, I think, again, like, everyone's interpretation of their childhood is totally filtered through the way you want to see it. So I have no idea if that's really the way it was. Of course, being the youngest of the family and a girl, I probably got plenty of attention. But I've always just kind of, and it is an interesting thing, like, it is kind of in my temperament to be the supporting character, to not be the star of the show. Even when I was writing music and performing it, and I had like songs on the radio and all that, and I'd go tour, I was very uncomfortable or I wasn't very uncomfortable. I was fine with it, but I felt way more comfortable when I was singing in bands where I was like the backup singer or I was in a choir. I did stand up comedy where you're the one person on the microphone, and that was fine. But I'm going to tell you right now, I've never been more nervous in my it was when I did theater shows for like, I opened for a touring performer named Caroline Ray.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so she invited me to open for her, which was so crazy. But there was like thousands of people in this theater, and
Yeah.
I was just like, "What am I doing?" But then I bombed at one show in my hometown in Edmonton, and I'm like, "That's it, I'm out." Like, and so her advice to me was, go do some improv classes. Well, then I felt much better being a supporting character on a team than I did being the one standing behind the microphone.
Wow.
And so is my job as an agent, right? Like I prefer just to, as much as I really don't mind having like the one-on-one. Like I speak to groups, I'm the one with the microphone, but to me, I look at it as teaching. So I am in service to them. And so for me as a teacher, I'm able to do that. For me as a speaker, I'm able to do that. Me as a coach, I love the one-on-one coaching because I can help one-on-one lead somebody, but I'm just kind of the person behind the guy behind the guy is the way one of my agent friends calls it. And that's it. I'm the guy behind the guy. And I love that. And if I can be the guy behind the guy and propel messages, I am well aware that the speakers that I'm behind are going to be on more stages and their fees will increase because of demand and the quality of the product. I know this for sure. And so that's why the Velvet Rope Access, because I want my skills and the things that I've learned to go behind the speakers that are going to, you're going to laugh, move the needle
Yeah.
towards better.
So what I love about C Agency is, as the more research and looking, it's something that is highly curated, and from hearing you, you want and you desire and will not stand for someone who doesn't align with what you're doing. Although, whose voice was that one? Whose voice is that?
Spike, he's going
That's
home
Spike.
tonight.
No, I like Spike. That's Spike, everyone. So
Sorry.
you're good. So I just want the listeners to know who Spike is, because I tell you, they're going to want Spike's Instagram. They're going to want like Spike to come to an event.
Spike is my stepdaughter's dog, and he spends time with us when she's out of town. And I'm telling you, it turns the whole. It's like me. Spike is like me, the third kid, just an inconvenience. Do you understand? So I love and hate Spike at the same time. I'm like, Spike, you got to make it about other people. Go climb a tree, sit and sing songs in a tree, and get off my podcast.
So with the C Agency, right? So it's highly curated. I was just talking with a woman the other day. I said, early on in my career, I would say no. I would say no to things, but people would get mad at me, right? Because I didn't believe in that thing. I'm not going to do that thing. But it cost me revenue, and it caused me to be broke at the time, which is tough early on in your career.
It is.
When did you get to a point where you were like, no, this is the standard? Or did you set out with C Agency? Did you set out that way immediately, or was it something that you curated over time?
I didn't have the financial luxury. Like I bootstrapped the beginning of C Agency with no savings in the bank. I was the only working member of the family.
Yes.
Yeah, I got, nothing. I literally had nothing. I think I had some paychecks coming from my old job still, which was good. But
do you remember, Christa, do you remember, because when people say nothing, I was talking with my buddy, his name was Darren, and Darren was mad because he said he had a rough day. I said, well, what was your rough day? He's like, man, you wouldn't even believe it. I said, what was the bad day? He said, I was driving to see you, and I happened to be driving my 7 Series today, and the tire got flat. So, dude, I had to call my assistant, and she brought over my S-Class. So that way I could make it to all my appointments. And that's why my day has been rough. And I was like, dude, that's not a bad day. There's 2 cars in the and an assistant and somebody serving you. So when you talk about like a bank account low, do you remember kind of a figure or around a figure to give context?
Oh, I can tell you, I have no problem telling you this bit. Whew. Yep. You can feel it shooting off me.
I love it. I love it.
Well, listen, so I can tell you way more than you banked on, and you're going to love it. Banked. I didn't mean to say bank, counted on. Okay, here we go. So in 1997, when I moved to Dallas to start my new job outside of Canada, outside of teaching, outside of everything that was familiar, left all of my friends. I started at International Speakers Bureau, which is my sister-in-law's company. Day one, I had no idea what a speaker was, what a speakers bureau was, what an event was, more than just the cursory, well, I think this is probably what it is. Didn't know what a speakers bureau was for sure. And so did a half a day research, reported back to my sister-in-law at lunch and said, there are event planners looking for speakers and speakers bureaus help match them up. She said, you're hired, basically. So I started with no sales experience. I'm going to tell you, no money in the bank. Legitimately,
Like how much was it? Like $3, like $3.75.
It was a solid 3 digits. Like
Okay.
maybe I had a few $100s in the bank at any given moment.
So you were balling. You were balling.
Oh, and I had lots of help at that point. We were living with my brother and sister-in-law. Like it was just like, here we are, right? So moved to Dallas, Texas in a 1988 Honda Civic with no air conditioning. Had that until, yeah, I mean, that's the car we shared. And so my ex-husband didn't work, not one day. So that was rough.
Ever in your marriage?
He worked on the oil rigs for a few months when we were first married. Okay. And yeah, like I'm saying, no career. None. So he was a stay-at-home dad, but that just went on too long. Okay. Like into the teen years. That's enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's other things. There's immigration, he really couldn't work while he was, living in the States without a visa. Uh-huh. There is that, but at the same time, you kind of go, I need help. Yeah. So anywho, not to get too deep in the weeds, but when you ask me for anything we should stay away from, I probably should have said that because I overshare.
There's a safe word of pineapple. You could say pineapple whenever you would like. Anytime you would, or you could choose your own safe word during it. But what I love too, Christa, is that you're willing to have an actual conversation. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, your misery is your ministry. Listen, I didn't go through it just for it to go to waste. Like I fully believe that God brought me through it so I could teach from it. I really do. So, and I just want to protect the names of the guilty, but to my own demise, but so that's what always makes it tricky. But skipping ahead, I will just say that 100% commission sales when you have no sales experience makes you very creative. It's a very, what I call, actually not even what I call, I picked this up from a Tony Robbins thing that I saw. It's the push versus the pull motivation. And yeah, I know when you have that push motivation of fear, it's exhausting. It'll burn you out. But when I started tapping into what I call the obvious advantage, my obvious advantage, it was my ability to FSO, to figure stuff out all the time. My ability to teach, my ability to read a person based on me growing up or my music background or to find a hook because I was a songwriter. I could find a hook for a speaker in like that. And that's what would connect me with the planner. I could read what they really wanted and I could read what a speaker was, find a hook. And I was top producer 8 of my 10 years at the Speakers Bureau because I had to FSO my way into figuring out how to sell a speaker. I didn't eat. I didn't get to feed my children. That was it. 100% commission. And so when I burned out of that push motivation of the fear, I went to the other side of the industry and I worked for Karen Harris, who runs CMI Speaker Management. She was one of the first speaker managers in the game. And she, so I worked for her for a couple of years. And my model has always been, this will not surprise you, highly consultative. And I felt like I should hang my own shingle. I wanted more control over my relationship with the speakers. And so, she taught me a lot of the ropes of speaker management. And so I started a speaker consultation thing, which ended up being more speaker management than anything. And that's when I really was able to grow into kind of who I was and to be more the teacher than I ever had been. So that was a very cool thing.
When did you realize? Now, I'm going to give you 3 scenarios, and then I want you to explain how you got to this place, because some people work their land, other people's create their world, and there's very few that manufacture their own universe. And you're the latter. When did you realize that it was that important to create your own universe? And allow me with this. Number one, you understand speakers at a cellular level. You created a speaker agency. Bookable is a part of that universe. Your book is a part of that universe. Your coaching is a part of that universe. A person that came into your universe would really not need to go anyplace else to be able to sustain what it was that they're doing. There's very few people that think that way. What helped you to be able to create that and have that type of thought process as opposed to just working your own land?
Oh gosh. That's such a, well, that was so nice to hear you say all that. Like, it feels very kind of like zooming out, like, hey, look, Mom, I made this, or look, Dad, I made this. There's a kind of a lethal combination of creativity, an inability to let things be good enough, and and a complete absence of fear. So I know I scare the hell out of the people around me. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're crazy. And sprinkle on top of that for me, an unshakable faith that God has put in front of me what needs to be in front of me. And that if he's called me to it, he's going to call me through it.
Wow.
He's going to bring me through it. If he calls me to it, he's going to bring me through it. And I've gotten really good in my old age of hearing what it is and seeing what it is that I know that he wants me to do. Because it's all pretty simple. Listen, you said, where'd you learn this service thing? I got much better at it when I started like taking my relationship with God more seriously, because that's what the whole thing is, like, speak the truth in love, be in service of others, love your neighbor as yourself. It's all the basic fundamentals that we've gotten so far away from, that as soon as I kind of turn, I was like, well, it's a little 101, but it might work. Well, I'm going to tell you, like, it does me so much more, and the world so much more, when I can operate from a place of my actual gifts and calling, because that's my obvious advantage. My thing is to do what God puts in front of me. And when I stop overthinking what I should be doing next, and I'm preaching to myself right now, because I'm running this next Bookable event in May. And Kelly, I will be fully transparent. I have people registering, and I'm thinking of changing the format, because I feel like that's where we are. I'm going to see a studio this afternoon to perhaps do it in not a live environment, but a recorded environment, and have the speakers. Because I'm like, I think speakers need opportunities, because it's this very cool facility here in Dallas where you can do your own podcast, you can do your own headshots, you can do some video. Like, it's a cool place, and he's been wanting to work with me forever, the guy who runs this place. Yeah. And it's a beautiful facility. And I was like, what if I gave speakers the opportunity to do that when they come into town, and we could do coaching on what the headshots should look like right in real time? Wouldn't that be cool?
It'd be amazing. It'd be incredible.
I mean, that's just so it's like not even a month away. I'm giving my people fits that work with me. Like, I got a long email from my assistant this morning, and she's like, hey, where are we with Bookable? Did you book the hotel? I'm like, no, not yet. And she's like, what are you doing? Like, I might be changing it.
I love it. Well, can I tell you a secret?
Yeah.
I just got an idea the other day. We went to a comedy club, and I got another idea. And, our event is on the 12th, which is Saturday. And don't tell anyone. But
You are a nightmare.
I had one of those ideas, and I was like, man, I need to switch something. So I called the guy, and he's booking some stuff. It's going to be a surprise for the audience, and it might be a surprise for me in a good way or a bad way. I want to tell you that. Okay, here's the thing. I'm not sponsored by these guys yet. But do you have this?
What is it?
It's called Applaud. Plaud. It'll change your life. Do you have one?
Okay. I don't know what it is.
Okay, all your speakers at your event do this. All your speakers should wear them. You should wear it. What it does is it records all the conversation, the interaction from the audience, and then transcribes it when it's done so they don't have to take any notes.
What?
Okay, I'm giving, okay.
I'm good at that. And then you can hear what they're saying.
Yes. And then guess what? This is the crazy thing, is it will help you, like if you, when you're speaking, if you say a joke and it doesn't land, it'll actually tell you that one didn't land. So the response wasn't as great, but we're
amazing.
Okay. Not to say you could, because I know that planes don't fly out of Dallas, especially on Saturday.
No.
But because they closed the airport down, and there's no flights into Salt Lake from Dallas.
I can't come this weekend. I'm singing at my church all day Saturday, all day Sunday. And then I have
that old excuse.
I think I have a rehearsal. No, I have a,
yeah,
no, I have another, I'm singing at another gig on Sunday night.
That old excuse, if I've heard it once, I've heard it a million times. The old, I have to sing at church on Saturday and Sunday and then do rehearsal. I've heard this.
I have to water my plants.
I've always heard this. No, but that plod is
very cool.
It's really, really, really cool. I actually used it for my men's group this morning.
Nice.
I had to ask them, is it okay? Because it's inconspicuous, right? But so I'll send you the notes of my men's group today. It doesn't say any of the people's names, but it'll list out all the things that you talked about and like organize it and put it all. It's ridiculous. So
that's massive.
That was
I love that.
A quick.
Okay.
Okay. Help me though with the, do you realize that when you were creating the universe, which you're still expanding on, did you realize and intentionally go after the universe? Because you really did something like, okay, say the NBA has developmental leagues that are in, high school and even down into grade school that then go into the G League, that then go into the NBA, and they have this product that they were able to do. Do you realize that you've done that?
No.
Okay. Let me just tell you.
And I say that because the narcissist fighter in me goes, well, I'm not unique in that environment. Like there's other people that are doing this, but perhaps I did it too. So now, all right.
But I've been around and when I'm looking, let's go to the tape here, Christa. I'm putting on my trusty glasses that I stole from my wife because I didn't want to admit that I needed glasses. There we go.
Oh,
there's the state of my narcissism.
It's great. It's just denial.
So in these things, like in the first part of it, you alluded to it earlier. It's not the very first part in the contents, but because stumbling into speaking is. But when you were talking about client first, you talked about that. But I want to hit on when you talked about the obvious advantage, because so many people overlook their own obvious advantage. And you've used that term a couple of times, but help us to understand how a person can identify that.
Man, I'm peeling the onion on this whole obvious advantage thing in real time. It is so cool because what I realized as I started leaning into, it was last summer, Kelly, that I started leaning into the fact that, I have an obvious advantage and that's what I have. Like, I've been able to recognize the obvious advantage in other people. Where this comes from is that my favorite quote when I'm talking to speakers, and even to other people, but mostly as I'm consulting speakers, is don't ignore the obvious. Don't ignore the obvious. For you, I'm going to turn this on you just for a second. As I read your bio, skimmed it, but your experience with John Mitchell and all of these hair salons and all that you've done, that is a unique advantage. And you think, God, yeah, that's unique. Like I've never seen or heard of a speaker that has that kind of business experience and also has this big of a personality that can kind of like appeal to everybody. Like I can't think of a person that you wouldn't appeal to. And so that to me is you've run these multi-million-dollar businesses. You've seen the highs and lows of entrepreneurship. And you've made a successful transition into this razzle-dazzle, whatever the heck you're doing with these events. And you've successfully done that. So it doesn't seem to me like you really respect the limits of what people are supposed to do. Which,
I love. I,
yes.
I love because when you were saying it, I was like, oh, I'm in. And then, do you realize how you just used a comedy technique to be able to punch me in my face? Did you see that?
It comes naturally.
But you did it so masterfully. You had me, you were bringing it, and then you were like, and you don't respect. And I was like, wow, I don't respect. And then you brought it back. I was like, keep going.
Well, see, I gotcha. I hooked you. See, it's a good hook, isn't it?
Yes.
So, but you don't respect the limits of what people are supposed to do. And that is what a leadership principle or leaders need to hear as a principle, like an overarching principle for leadership, is that you take the risks, but you don't respect the limits, but you respect the people you're with. Like just when I was talking about my people that are with me, I'm driving them crazy, but at the same time, I took a minute before we got on this morning and really took a good minute, maybe 15, 20 minutes to respond to the email, not with, I'm on it, like, I got it. Okay. Like, don't worry. I've got it. I went through everything because Michelle's very process oriented. She's legitimately worried because I had not shared the process with her. So as a respecter of her and her details of her process about the Bookable Speakers event, she needed to hear where I was because she's worried about me. Right. And so as I respect the people that work with me and for me, that's good leadership. So what I'm saying for you is that you're able to do the same thing with your no respect for the limits of what's possible. Because I would guess that you, and I think it's you and your wife did this together, but you kept building more and more salons because you're like, well, once you get the process going, it's like exponential, which you can do. And that probably would freak a lot of people out. Like that would scare them. So for you, your obvious advantage is courageous leadership, with a much more snazzy term than that, because that's way overdone. But, just whatever, like, and from an interesting perspective too, because I don't know that anybody speaks about leading multi hair salons with something as, brand equity as John Mitchell. That's really interesting. And I think you could speak for iSpot. Like that would be a perfect place for you. And there are thousands of people in that audience. So I'm just riffing, but I'm just telling you, like, that's the obvious advantage that I see for speakers. Like, okay,
wow.
Like I just did that as you're sitting here. And,
do you find a lot of people resist it? Because I remember like when the transition, right? So, and I'm going to be transparent with you. I've never said this to anybody, is when I was transitioning, when I owned the businesses and we were running them and everything like that, before we sold them, I was speaking simultaneously during that time, right?
Yeah.
But when I chose to go into it, I actually just went cold. I didn't tell anyone in this industry, that what I had done in the past. And then people were like, oh, wow, you seem kind of natural. And I was like, well, if doing it 42 times a year, on the weekends while I was working, then doing that for 30 years is natural, then I'm really natural. Mm-hmm. But I almost resisted that part, what you're talking about, because I didn't want to be pigeonholed.
Yeah, well,
do people do
very
that?
common.
Is that a common thing?
Yes. And when I tell you don't ignore the obvious, that's what I'm talking about. You're just like, oh, I'm just going to leave that. It's like, are you what? Like, that's so obvious.
Wow.
Yes, of course. Like, I have met not just one Olympian, I know 2 Olympians, 2.5 actually, because there's one that just keeps like dipping their toe in the water saying, I'm going to not use my Olympic story. It's not that big of a deal. 3, it's like, what? Are you kidding? Like, it is, but what seems easy, and here's what I've discovered about the obvious advantage, the different layers. Really on the top layer, it's kind of like an accomplishment thing that speakers ignore. Yeah. Okay, that I have noticed that speakers ignore, or anybody, but it's what the mere mortals on the outside of Kelly go, you're amazing. And you go, no, it's just that. That's what your obvious advantage is, because it's so natural to you that it's just as natural as breathing. That's what God gave you. That's what he gave you to do. And you're so good at it that you discount it. And it's such a crazy moment. You need someone to read the label on the outside of the jar and say, this is what you're amazing at. And what I am really actively working to do, and in fact, I did a whole hour and a half with a colleague yesterday, because I want to put a framework around it so anybody can do it. Like, it's not,
Wow.
I think that because I've got so many reps under my belt of doing it for so many speakers, my obvious advantage is being able to spot the obvious advantage in others, which is very full circle. But there is a framework around it. And again, nature versus nurture, like what I've always been good at is what I've, employed and used and made stronger and better. And I love it because I see people, like people just like you, you felt seen, right? You're reading my mail,
Yeah.
and you felt like, okay, she's like really paying attention to the details, because for 10 years my paycheck depended on it. And I had to see the obvious advantage in speakers so that I could match it up with an event planner so that I could get a paycheck. Fear is a powerful motivator. It teaches you a lot.
Yeah.
It does burn you out, but now it's become such a strong pull motivator for me that I am energized talking about people's strengths and particular giftings and what God's put them on the planet to do. It's just such a cool experience to see people feel seen and to say, well, could I actually make a living at that? And it's like, that's why you're here, is to help people and hopefully not starve. You can monetize pretty much anything. I found, like, this is
Yeah.
America. We can find a way to build a business around that.
Well, Christa, when you were writing the book, what I respect about it too is, or what I felt is, you wrote about what you had already done, not about what you had a theory of what would work if somebody applied it.
Yeah, that's true.
And
Yeah.
it was that the angle, because as I
Mhm.
read through, so I'm going to pop my trusty glasses on. That, thank you to my wife. You're going to love my wife, Brooklyn. Um, so like, I'm going to go through, I'm just going to pick out a place because I'm going to show you too, Christa. So
Okay.
almost every single page has some sort of annotation on it and money dropping out of it that just
Oh,
did.
funny.
Um, so I'm gonna go to one and then you help me out.
Okay.
Prepare for common questions. Know the
Mhm.
questions that typically arise and have strong, clear answers ready. The preparation will keep you confident and articulate even when faced with tricky queries. But here's the clarification on this. Sometimes when someone's so prepared, I almost feel as if I get a canned answer. How can they make sure that their heart is in those answers, as opposed to them saying, well, this is what I'm supposed to say on the podcast, so I'm going to answer this question?
Yeah. Um, well, golly, I mean, if it comes from the heart, it's going to sound like unique every time. And I think the mark, and just on the flip side, practical, non squishy part of it, is anybody who is a professional, um, does, like a professional musician. The Eagles do Hotel California tens of million bajillions of times, and it's in service to the audience to make it sound like it's the first time they've done it, or else you're mailing it in. Like, I went to
Yes.
see Sting years ago, and I appreciated, just it was actually the Police. I did see Sting, but I saw the Police here in Dallas. It was probably, God, 15 years ago, but by now, and I was just vibrating. I was so excited to see the Police, and they did mail it in because they're not that friendly with each other, and you could see it. And I appreciated it just because I was watching Legends, and I just would, it's like masterful. It was so cool. But the resounding commentary on the whole tour was they're just mailing it in. And you can tell if someone's doing that, right? And
Yeah.
so if you feel it from the heart, you're not going to mail it in, but sometimes you got to fake it. Fake it till you make it. You got to fake feeling it.
Well, I tell, and when I telling you before, like, you came out swinging, like, you came out in the book, like, not, I talked to John Gordon and I was telling him,
Oh,
John Gordon, if you read, did you read his book, The One Truth?
no.
Okay. You got to read it. It's 3 books in one. I've never
Okay.
seen this happen before. So 3 books in one. And when I talked to him, I said, you jabbed,
Mm,
you crossed to set
mm.
us up, and then you uppercut in the 3rd book, and like the knockout blow. It was masterful. But I tell you, Become a Bookable Speaker, when I opened it, literally, I was eating haymakers that were precision. It wasn't just somebody swinging over the top of the head in the backyard like your two uncles fighting. This was like this was like getting like uppercut by Mike Tyson in his prime, like with your hands down. So what I want to say, like you hit it. Like I think this is the third page. What does it mean to be bookable? And I will just show you that I actually annotated and I crossed these in. So this isn't me just reading your book because I didn't read it. This is me studying your book. Easy to choose, easy to work with, easy to rebook. Being bookable means you are low risk, high reward for a choice for event planners. Your value is obvious. Your materials are professional and your delivery is consistent.
Right. Yep. Well, now if those are haymakers, then I'm glad I delivered them. Because if there's anything that I want people to know, those are basics. Those are basics in any business. I would hope that when I do consulting and when I work with the speakers that are on my roster, which is all, I don't talk about it a ton, but it's a joy working with the speakers on my roster. Like I am so honored and blessed to work with these people because it's been very specific in choosing them as well, as you can imagine. So I got 12 people that are really looking for the same things that I'm like, we're super aligned on that.
Yeah.
And if they're not nailing those basics, then we have a much bigger problem because then again, gosh, I'm a broken record, but then they're serving themselves. If they don't care to put the time into their materials, then they don't care to be chosen. And if they're looking at me for more bookings and they're not going to put their time into their materials and make themselves an easy choice and rebookable choice, then they're wasting my time. And that's not a respect to me and to the bureau agents that look to me for speakers to put in their proposals. If a speaker, I'm just going to say this, and I don't think I've ever said it on a podcast, but this is really critical information. A lot of speakers, I can feel it when I'm talking it. A lot of speakers will look at speakers bureaus as, this is the brass ring. I'm listed with this bureau and this bureau and this bureau and this bureau. There's value to that. But if they come to this bureau agent with shoddy materials and that bureau agent puts them in a proposal, that's a valued spot for them. And if they don't get chosen over and over and over, that bureau agent has just wasted their trust and that speaker's done. You are wasting the bureau agent's time and you're wasting the respect that bureau agent has for the speakers that I represent. So if the speakers that I represent are not bookable, I want nothing to do with them. I am willing to work with speakers who don't have the best materials. I get that, but I will not put them to market like that. Like just transparently, there is a very healthy onboarding fee for my roster because it takes a lot of time and effort and the 30 years of experience that's up here to make what I call a speaker seaworthy, C agency seaworthy, get it?
Yeah.
So seaworthy to push out to bureaus, so bureaus go, oh, okay, it's a Christa speaker, it's a C agency speaker. Okay, we can trust to put them in a proposal. And I still get it wrong. I still sign speakers that aren't willing to put the work in and don't see the value of it. And I still get it wrong, but I'm getting better at it. Much better.
I want to compliment you too on something that, and I don't know that you probably see it because you see the obvious advantages in everybody, and you have your Christa ball that you have.
You know what my improv name was, Kelly?
What's that?
You know what? Christa Meth.
No way.
That's something I've never said on a podcast.
Oh my gosh. And that's I love it.
Because it was an all-female improv troupe and our name was Heroin Addiction.
Oh my gosh. I don't even know where I was after that.
I know. My crystal ball, which I'm totally stealing.
You're the obvious advantage. I was talking about the obvious advantage. Where else was it? Where else were we?
Oh, well, I was talking, you probably was like the onboarding fee is probably where you were going.
No. I mean, I think that's genius because it's a barrier of entry. But what I'm saying is like you have this quiet, humble confidence right? That my mom always taught me, and my pops would say, the person in the room that's the loudest is generally not the person you need to worry about. It's the
Mm,
person that sits in the corner that can knock you into next week, but never will because they know that they can. Is there a speaker on this earth that you could not turn into a Hall of Fame speaker?
no, no, I don't think so. But I wouldn't. I'm writing a book, actually. I'm writing a book, and it's called Beware the Franken Speaker, and it's all about that.
Tell me about the Franken speaker, because when you said that, I was sitting, I remember where I was sitting in my side yard, which we should get new furniture, but don't judge. I feel the heat of the judgment coming off that I should get new
Oh,
furniture.
oh, from your wife, not from me.
Well, it's old and it's been there, and then I painted it, and well, my wife painted it, but we're married, so I felt we did it. But I was sitting in that chair and I read that word Frankenspeaker, and I didn't have anything on like a drink. I'm glad,
But it was
because
a
I would
spit
have
take for you.
spit it out, because I see this all the time. And it's one of those things where I've probably been it at times, but describe this Franken speaker, because I think it's hilarious.
I've used this phrase for years. It's very funny, actually. Like, I've used it. It's kind of like when I would say there was C Agency 1.0, and then what we have now is 2.0.
Got it.
And 1.0 for me was the wet behind the ears. I can make a successful speaker out of anybody. And I did. And when a person does that, then they do run the risk of creating a Franken speaker, because my skills got ahead of my values, and I stopped looking for the speakers that were aligned with what my core mission and values are. I got away from speakers who represent what I really value in the world, and I Franken speakered their materials and who they were, and put together kind of, I placed this part of there was never, like, I know enough to not lie. Okay. I know enough to not lie about their background, but there are ways to massage phrases like award winning. There are ways to massage phrases like best selling. It happens all the time. And it has created speakers who have less soul and core than others. So that I think we all have, like, even in my own brand, because that's what you got to do. You got to spin, right? Sometimes you got to spin things. And there's a fine line between identifying someone's obvious advantage and overstating someone. Like, you kind of find the middle where it's just a tad maybe uncomfortable, but still true, but not swing over here because you had 1 hour on the best-selling list on Amazon in some random category for a book that you had AI write. That's the extreme, and that's out there. All right. There are speakers who are recording presentations. I'm about to yell. Mom's about to yell. There are speakers recording presentations in front of paid actors on big stages. Wow. That's a Franken speaker, because they've got this. They've been a genetically modified, some kind of putting together all of these different elements to put this speaker out there when they haven't done friggin' 42 presentations a year to their, for all these years at their old job, like you. They've only done a handful of presentations, or they have a story to share that might be kind of interesting or hits a niche. And so you just Franken speaker a brand around it just so it can sell. But the speaker, there's no depth. They're using other people's stories. They've got thinly woven, even like the depth of stories are so thin on these Franken speakers that there's just like, it's in some ways, it's an abomination. of what the industry was. When I started in 1997, there was a small pool of greats, and they had been around for decades, and and just lived to speak,
Yeah.
like lived for it, and had done, like, probably slept in their car. You know what I mean? Like, there was all of that, just such a purity. And it was probably like Motown in the 70s. It was just this like Woodstock, like pure, pure, pure. It was like that was the beginning. And when you see that for the first 10 years of your career, and then sometime in the teens when technology got really accessible and people got really smart and savvy, including yours truly, like it's kind of a biography is this Franken speaker thing, because I know that I did this, and in fact I named myself. It's like it's a fable, and it's about this oh, what is she? She's like she's not a wizard, but she's some kind of like, she's called the Sea, right? It's a bit on the nose,
Yeah.
but it's me. And I know that I engineered some speakers, and they live off the applause, and when they stopped getting the applause,
Wow.
they got very mad. And when the spotlight went out, they got irate. And then they went around and they started breaking people and breaking things and breaking the industry I love.
Wow.
It's a little deeper than just a silly book.
No, I love that part of it. So tell me, let's reverse back a little bit, because you said your skills went ahead of your values.
Mm-hmm. Just because you can build it doesn't mean you should. If you get approved, this is going to be an extreme example, but if you get approved by the zoning committee to build an adult bookstore in a residential community next to a school, does it mean you should? No, right? But you can. And so, I mean, I should have taken more care of the industry that put food on the table for my children all those years. I should have taken care of it. And in a lot of ways, this is not something I've shared outside of private conversations, but whatever, what the heck, let's go. With Bookable Speakers, I'm kind of fixing I broke a little bit, and I see people to continue breaking on much larger scales. And so Bookable Speakers is my effort to pour into the speakers that I think are really, really going to elevate the industry for many decades to come. Yeah.
At what point did you realize, because there's our conversation before we started, which we weren't recording and no one will know about except me, which is awesome. And we related on something. We connected, and not just on oh, wow, I feel you, or I have empathy, but it's like, no, girl, we've been in that, like we're talking, I mean, apples for apples. There was a time in my career very early on where literally in my head, when I asked you the question, could you build anyone? You said, emphatic. I want you to go back to that at some point throughout the day. I want you to go back to that answer. You did not, that was not a fraction of a second until you answered. I swear, there's no delay. It was like, do you, and it was in slow motion, and you were like, yep. Like, I will, I got you. And when you,
because I have,
right?
Yeah.
When was there a turning point for you or somebody? Because sometimes it's like the smallest little thing. Like, say for instance, I was walking my dog. I had to pick up poop, and I was kind of mad because here I am, grown man, walking behind a dog and picking up poop in a baggie, and then saying hello to my friends with crap in a bag. And this is just normal. This is just super normal. And he's got crap in his hand in a bag.
Yep.
Whenever ever in life could you walk up to another human being with crap, unless you have a dog, to say like, hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm holding crap, you're holding crap, but no one's saying anything about it.
Yeah.
But I realized at that time, and God spoke to me at that time, that if you're not willing to walk behind your people and pick up their crap, you will never know what they're eating. And I was like, that's a weird place, God, to speak to me in my dog's doo-doo.
Oh, no, but it's certainly visceral enough to get your attention, isn't it?
It's a graphic one. When you were, Captain Save-A-Ho,
That's the name of
did,
my grocery store.
yes,
Save
that's
a hoe.
what,
Yeah.
Save a Hoe, yeah. So when did you realize that, and then realize that it doesn't have to be a hoe that I'm saving?
Yeah. Um, well, it wasn't until
Was there a
that I
time? Was there like a boom, an epiphany? Was there the dog
oh,
poop, or was there what?
listen, it was a slow drip of acid on my soul.
You said like this. Listen.
I'm like, you gotta hear me when I say this. I'm gonna get your attention.
So a small drip of acid on your soul. Go.
Mhm. From each disloyalty and each realization that I had put my efforts into a person and several people who didn't deserve it. It was throwing pearls to swine. And I
Mm.
realized that slowly, in that I you can't just love everybody and everything. You can't, Krista. You can't just say I can save everybody. You're a raging codependent. Like, knock it off. Stop making people love you because you've made them successful or because you show them love. Like, it was honestly, I had to work through so many codependency issues through this. And it was just so indicative of all of the patterns of every codependent and narcissist relationship ever. Um, and I don't like, not anybody is 100% pure evil or narcissist and bad, and I'm not pure wonderful and good, and I'm such a victim. No, not by any stretch, and you and I shared some of the things that I had been going through tandem at the same time that made me realize, like, oh, Kristen, like, get your act together. Yeah, you probably caused this in some kind of weird, distorted way where you can do anything for anybody, and look at me, I'm so great, now you love me, right?
Mm.
And I shouldn't have done that. I just shouldn't have done that. And I made a lot of money doing it, which was great because it took care of me, it took care of my kids. I was able to go through like some severely, severely hard times from 2015 all the way through and then we can talk about COVID, because that was another. You want to talk about like jab, cross, undercut? That was me. There was 2015 jab, 2017 cross, and then 2020 was the undercut and
Oh
slow
my.
motion back with teeth and blood flying. Like, it was just awful. So I realized it through all of those. That if I'm going to stay in this industry, I better make it something that I feel like I can be respected for,
Mm.
that it's a legacy for my children. If I put my back into something, I want it to be able to be mentioned in my eulogy. I'm not interested in putting my time and effort away from my family, away from my children, and putting it into something that's not at least something my kids would be proud of.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
So
my poor dog.
is that Spike? Is that one Spike?
No, that's Sadie. She's now like,
I just
you've
want.
had enough time with this
Well, I
man.
want to let the audience know that she's abusing Sadie right now. That's what.
Oh,
So,
I'm definitely.
you
Oh,
know,
you
she
should
was
see her
holding
face.
back,
Like, how dare you?
holding back the treats from her is what it was.
Yeah, exactly. That's the kind of abuse we're talking about right now. Oh my
Oh
God.
my gosh. So we broke down, like I always love efficiencies, right? Like looking at something and then breaking it down and cutting away the fat. You seem to do this with the with the professional speaking industry. So the way that we did it in the professional beauty industry was, and it was very, very simple, right? So make a connection with somebody, like make sure that you make a true connection as far as like conversation, ask them their desires, repeat
cool.
back their desires to them, give your professional recommendation, execute, ask for another visit. So
Great.
it's pretty simple. I mean, it was like, that's all you did. And if you did
Yeah.
that,
You could have a sustainable income.
oh, phenomenal. And if you just did that for 8 people a day at only $100 a pop, you would make 6 figures. Very simple, right?
Yeah.
Break that down for the speaker industry. And I'm not talking about the you don't have to put the figures to it. But when I'm saying, like, it was amazing because you talked about like the bureaus, you talked about the event planner, you talked about things in your book that most people are like, all I care about is the audience. But you were like, no, silly.
Uh, uh,
It's
uh,
bing, 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 all the way down. Can you give that
yeah,
blueprint?
I will do what I can. I will start with something that I call the speaker booking circle of life.
Hmm.
That I wish I had one of my cards. I have them out on my other desk. Yes, I have more than one desk.
Big time.
So big, it's really big time.
Big time.
It's actually just a desk I moved out of my office. It has all my stuff still on it. Anyway, so the speaker booking circle of life has evolved over the almost 30 years, right?
Yeah.
That I've been in it. But you would think it starts with the need, right?
Mm-hmm.
Number one is the need. So I say you think, because, and I'm going to come back to that. So there's the need. You need. I wish I had this in front of me. It's okay. Maybe I can pull it up on my phone. I don't know if I'm this good. I'm going to try. It's been a while.
That's okay.
Circle of life. Go, Christa. You can do it. Do you have this theme, the Lion King theme in your head? Okay. So here is my speaker booking circle of life. You ready for it? Can you see
Yes.
it?
Move it over to your left. Yes, right in there. Yeah.
Okay.
There we go.
This
And
is,
you
we're
just got
very high.
Michelle Reynolds just texted you too. So tell Michelle that we said hello. And I'm going to release Michelle's phone number on the on the podcast. You know what would be funny?
That's my person, my executive assistant. She's so good.
Why don't we just call her right now? We should call her.
She would love it. She'd be like, "I hate you."
Christy, do you know that I have a show on the podcast that's called You Have to Meet My Friends, right? You know this one?
No.
So I go live and I call my friends randomly and they don't know they're on the podcast till they're on.
That's amazing. That's the best part of every talk show ever is
God,
that
so-
moment.
Well,
When Ellen called Gladys and Gladys was like, "Listen, honey, I love Jesus, but I drink a little." Like, was there a better moment than Gladys on the Ellen DeGeneres show?
It's so much fun. So if we ever need to call Michelle, then let me know.
She would totally be into it. She would totally be into it.
So,
So the speaker booking circle
Yeah.
of life. So yes, so I kind of showed it to you in a very high tech fashion.
okay.
But at the very top, you can see what it is. So at the very top, we have the top circle is buzz. Okay. And the buyer hears about you via word of mouth. So that's step one.
Got it.
Buzz goes into step two, which is I have Google, but now, unfortunately, and we need to talk about this, not today, but with some people who are much smarter than we are, AI, they go to Google or AI
Yep.
to look for a speaker. So it's, AI is not caught up to Google yet, but it's getting there.
Okay.
So they pull up the first non-page search result. These dogs are driving me crazy. Step three, because they can feel them getting excited and they're like, we want to be excited. So step three is vetting. They vet you through YouTube, website, and social proof. Step four is contact. Then they contact the speaker. At what point in this circle of life right here,
Uh-huh.
where do you think that you get injected into the process?
I would think it was the buzz because you're a lot of times people aren't conscious of the things that people are saying about them. And if you're intentional that way, it could help.
Yeah. Okay. So we have zero control. And I say we being you, me,
Yeah.
my speakers that I represent, the speaking industry at large.
Mhm.
We are not looped into the process until at the earliest is contact.
Wow.
A lot of times it's decision.
Mm.
So your materials are conducting a job interview that you are not able to attend. So let me look straight in the camera and look in speaker's eyes, and I hope everyone's looking and they can hear me when I say this. When you tell me on a call, I just need to get on a phone with the client, I close them every time, and I say, no shit, Sherlock. They've already made their decision because they've heard the buzz, they got referred, they went to Google, they vetted you probably with their committee. They've looked at your videos, they looked at your social proof, they looked at all of your Instagram, they've sent it around all the committees, and then they reach out online, usually to find a fee, and you can find that on a speakers bureau. Sometimes they'll reach out to that speakers bureau for fee and availability. Sometimes they'll just get the fee, and then they'll contact you. they've already made 95% of their decision before I haven't sold a speaker in years.
Oh my God.
On the phone or on an email. I haven't, even still the speakers I represent say, well, who are you pitching me to? And I go, I don't get to pitch you. There's nobody just randomly out there looking around saying, hey, Christa, and actually I have enough contacts that I do still, I actually get some, which is very cool. I spoke for Meeting Professionals International 2 or 3 weeks ago for the DFW Education Day. And there were a few people, I don't even know this person that contacted me this week. I think he just saw that I'm a resource through MPI DFW. He said, I need information on this. And I was like, that's cool. But even then, it was 3 specific speakers. It wasn't even me pitching a speaker. So I don't get an opportunity as a human to human. I don't get to do that. It's your materials that are selling you. And even then, it is a terrifying place to be for us who worry about quality, because now let's just circle back to the Franken speaker. There is so much catfishing going on out there. On the technology has made it so quick start speaker in a box. Boom, you can be a speaker overnight. Kelly, I have no idea. I'm going to tell you fully transparently. I have no idea if you're a great speaker or, I mean, from this podcast, obviously. Okay. But I don't know if your content's relevant. I don't know anything because your stuff looks grade A, amazing, perfect. But that is baseline now. It's baseline. You have to be grade A, amazing, perfect. And then you got to deliver so pinpoint precision, surgical precision on what it is you do, why you do it, who you do it for, and your platform of credibility in that. Does this all make sense?
Absolutely. So is it this may sound counterintuitive and I may be way off, and I was having this conversation with my friend the other day. It wasn't about speakers, but would you rather have a person that was slightly sloppy, their digital imprint, and then you met them and you were like, holy cow, this person's amazing? Or do you want the person to be pinpoint digital and then show up and you'd be like, eh?
I'm actually getting choked up because that's what's selling is the eh.
And
but it's good enough.
Yeah.
It's good enough.
And when I say it, like I think about companies say, I've had people come to me before and say, like, I need some help with my messaging or marketing or whatever it is. And I'm like, honest to God, if you as a company owner turned a camera on yourself, didn't have good lighting, was awful, and you said, hey, look, I started this company because I wanted my kids to have a different life and for them to be able to see something different. I happen to sell these hats and I pour every single thing that I do into these hats. And you said, all these things. People would connect with that as opposed to the person that said, I have ClickFunnels and I have blah, 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 and all the stuff. So, I mean, obviously the whole
We're swinging back. We are swinging back to that. The authenticity. I mean, it is, and I'm sorry to step on you, Kelly, but I know where you're going with this. Like you should be able to do, I hope I say this the right way. I'm also writing another book. It's 100 truth bombs for speakers, and I'm sourcing speaker bureau agents. And I know, so I'm up to 46 and I'm sourcing speaker bureau agents, and my inbox is, when I tell you, I'm like overwhelmed with the response. I sent email out to like 330 bureau agents that not all of them I know personally. I got emails from bureau agents I've never talked to with like a whole list of no-nos for speakers, and not just corrective things, but like, these are truth bombs for speakers. And as I was kind of working through this, as I was working through all this, I don't like, it's not in my nature. Okay, I want to say this the right way. It is possibly in my nature to be corrective, but out of love. It's like, speak the truth in love. I hope so. Like, I really hope that I'm corrective in love. Like, not according to like the AI people who read my interviews and stuff, though. They're like, you seemed very grumpy. Like, I'm like, stop it. Like I'm just trying to be nice. I'm trying to correct people, but in a good way. So I don't want this book to be corrective. I want it to be truth filled. But what I want to say about that in the context of what you were talking about is that my hope is that there is a speaker out there that can do all of those things absolutely wrong. And if the calling is on their life, there's going to be no stopping it. So you could and should be able to break every one of those rules and still succeed if you are meant to be a speaker on that stage.
With your relationship, with God, like, how have you known when it's a calling as opposed to you calling it?
Yeah, there's so much of our Christian walk that is, we're supposed to walk by faith and not by sight. And so my answer is probably just that. I know that the way I see God working in my life particularly is it's a very high trust relationship, which is probably good because without that you really have nothing in any relationship. But I have moved forward in things with 100% faith that if I'm doing the wrong thing, God's going to stop it. And if I'm in good, because I'm pretty finely attuned to my conscience now, just the beatings will continue until the morale improves. So I just really wanted to learn. I wanted the beatings to stop. So you learn pretty quick when you want the beatings to stop.
Oh my gosh. Break down so my son would understand it. I remember first getting into I kind of stumbled into the industry. It wasn't like I set out to do it. It was just when I talk about a speaker agent, when we were young, when I started, this was 21. My boss was the artistic director of Paul Mitchell. So the lineage was, who Vidal Sassoon is, right? So Vidal Sassoon had a guy named Paul Mitchell that was his artistic director. Artistic director means like the CEO guy, right?
Wow. Okay.
So Vidal had Paul. Paul had, when he transitioned into doing his own thing, he had a woman named Jean Bra. While I was in beauty school, a woman told me, if you do anything in your career, follow this woman. And she just showed me a picture of a blonde-headed woman who I didn't know who it was, but it happened to be Jean Bra.
Oh, okay.
So I sought out Jean Bra. Well, Jean Bra, when Paul died in 1989, became the head of Paul Mitchell.
Okay.
Jean Bra's artistic director was a guy named Robert Cromeans. So when I sought out Jean, this blonde-headed woman, she had this guy on stage named Robert that shined the light on everybody, talked about everyone, didn't ever talk about himself, he was so good at what he did that he made it, he could laugh at it because he didn't have to take himself so seriously.
Okay.
And so I just followed him for followed him for 2.5 years, like I did with you, and told him I was going to force him to be my friend. And then he finally gave up the ghost and gave me a job.
It's very compelling.
So the lineage, right, was Paul or Vidal, Paul, Jean, Robert, and then I became the guy for Robert.
Nice.
Right?
Yep.
So, but I didn't know, and so Robert, that's the backstory of it. So Robert got asked to do a speaking engagement or like a demonstration, and his wife, we call her the agent, his wife said he's not available. They said, okay, cool, send us the other person. She was like, well, they're booked too. And they said on the other end of the phone, go ahead and send your team. And she said, okay, and hung up before she realized that there was no team. That's how I got into the business. So she just brought us over and said, hey, by the way, they couldn't get Robert. They couldn't get Stephanie. Yeah. They're taking you guys. So I didn't know any of this stuff. Can you break down what the speaker agent is, what the bureau agent is, what the event planner is, and how these all come together to create one? Like some people think, I go into an arena and speak to 100,000 people. There's one moving part. That's not the case, though.
No. And in any of these performance arts, there's a whole squad and team of people behind, U2's on tour and like the whole back line and like, Taylor Swift. It's not just one person, but one person has to be out front of the brand, because that's the way the world works, especially America. So you want one person, right? You want the figurehead. But we all know, and there's a whole team. So I'm going to actually just address something really quick that you just kind of wove into the story, but you fell backwards into speaking, like I fell backwards into the speaking industry. And that is one of the ways that it's a tell for me that it's something that God's been orchestrating. That it might be, right? It's kind of like, oh, that's interesting. Like that just came out of nowhere. Totally out of nowhere. Like, why did that happen like that? Well, and maybe that's a calling. And then it could be like your dream from being a kid, it could be the other way. And you just like everything you do. I have a really good friend who actually started at the Speakers Bureau with me. And like, I was in charge of saying yes or no to him getting hired. And then I ended up being his mentor. And now he's a really successful speaker. And he told me actually at the Bureau, he said, I'm doing this because I want to be a speaker one day. I was like, okay, Junior, whatever. Well, heck, look at him go. Like he's totally doing it. So, so that, as far as the calling, because you had mentioned that, I mean, it's just kind of one of those flags. But as far as the ecosystem of the industry, you're looking at many different players. Of course, the individual speakers are the center sparkle, right? Like the tip of the sparkler, where it goes like that. But then you've got, they'll have, does every speaker need a manager? No, but at a certain point in your career, it's a really good idea to get a manager so you avoid the pitfalls it is a highly nuanced industry, and there are ways to kill your career that you don't know about. If you have an inexperienced manager, it can kill your career. That's one of the truth bombs in my book. So having a good manager is a good idea at a certain point. Generally, a manager like me is also an agent, because I'm going to be always looking for an opportunity to book my speaker. There is no moment that goes by where I'm not looking for an opportunity to promote or book my speaker. And if that means reconnecting with a bureau agent that I haven't heard of in a long time, do you think that me pushing my truth bomb idea out to 323 or 353 agents or whatever it is was good when my roster is listed on my signature? That email had nothing to do with it, but I'm always looking for ways to reconnect with buyers. Always. I spoke at MPI because that's a room full of buyers that I can bring value to. And I gave my obvious advantage talk. Well, who was exhibit A and B in my obvious advantage talk? Byron Reese and Doc Henley, my two speakers. I've had Doc since 2000, like January 2010, like 6 months after I started C Agency. And I've had Byron for 12, 13 years. So they're part of my presentation. So a good agent is always looking for opportunities to promote and book their speakers. Wow. A manager is going to help you massage the parts of your business and help you peek around corners that you just don't know about. You don't know what you don't know. So you try and help the speakers with the things that they can't see. You can't read the label from inside the jar, so you help them read the label. So that's what a good manager agent does. In the entertainment industry, I think they call them the 10 percenters. You may know better than I do, but they're separate people. But in the speaking industry, they're really generally the same person. Now, speakers bureaus, they call themselves agents. This is when it gets a little fuzzy and squishy. And it's because they are booking speakers. An agent really is the representative of the talent. So parenthetically, that's why I call C Agency because we are the actual definition of an agency. Like if you look in the dictionary and it says sofa, C couch, it's the definition. Okay, C Agency, got it? Okay, so I'm whipping a lot of information at you right now.
That's good.
And then so there's the bureau agents, which is just fine. That's what we call them. So there's bureau agents. And just as a little hot take for the speakers out there, a lot of them will think that a bureau listing you on their website, they represent you. They don't. You're just listed. They say a speaker will think that getting in with a bureau is a career maker. It's not. A bureau agent is build a relationship with a bureau agent, because the more relationships one-on-one you can have, and you don't need but a half a dozen great bureau agents who believe in your work, know your value, have seen you speak. Fly them to see you speak. If you want a relationship with an agent, when you come to town, make sure that you build the relationship with an agent. So that's someone that can really shorten the runway for a speaker, is an agent. And make sure that who they're booking makes sense for who you are as a speaker. Like, don't, if you're a political speaker, go to the ones that are, the bureaus that focus on political speakers, right? But so that's kind of the ecosystem. And then, of course, we have the event planners and the event professionals, and those are our end client. And so when you're creating your materials, you're going to have to create for bureau agents, for the event planner, which now can range anywhere from Gen Z, which is my kids' age, all the way up. And the Xers are the ones kind of like the 35 to 55. Maybe, is it? I don't know. 60? I don't know how old Xers are. You're an Xer. So
I'm an Xer. So I'm 49 until next month on the 23rd.
Oh,
50. Big
wow.
50.
There's the hill. Oh.
Yes.
You know what? I got the millennials and the Xers kind of mixed up. So there's the millennials who are, so the Xers are kind of like the bosses now. We're the bosses. And then the millennials are the ones, that's us. So you have to kind of, and then there's still boomers that are hanging on, right? God bless them, because their retirement went south in COVID. So like, I guess I'm going to keep working. So we've got a lot of generations we're selling to right now.
Yeah.
So you got to do everything from TikTok to fax machines.
What about the people that maybe that you find that maybe aren't as good? Maybe they aren't as good socially, right? Social media wise. Is there still room for that in the industry, that a person said, the outlier? So when I talk about an outlier, I think of, I say like comedy, right? I always loved Robin Williams, and do you know the story about Robin Williams? Do you know him pretty intricately?
I know lots of stories about him. Yeah.
So one of my favorite stories was, cause I watch, late night TV where they try and sell you DVDs, for a low price of $19.99 that no one else will get, and they're limited. Or that you buy $2 bills that are uncut, that I do have, that are still going up in value, Christa.
And they're wrapped up in your Bookable Speakers book.
Yeah.
They are. Yeah. They're falling out of your books.
But my wife still yells at me. I'm like, baby, you don't understand. I invested in $2 bills. They're uncut. She's like, they're worth $2. How much you spend? I was like, that's not that's irrelevant. I spent $100 on like $8 worth of $2 bills. But they're going up in value. They're out of print. So they're...
Hey, high risk, high reward.
That's what I'm talking about. She just doesn't understand my logic. So
I'm totally on your side, by the way, but let's continue.
Okay, so where was I? Robin Williams. So Robin Williams, he never did the same set twice.
Oh.
This was wild. And it used to like kill event planners. It used to kill people. And he was like, he never did the same set. And he said like,
that's on brand for him, right?
Yeah, it's very on brand, but sometimes people try and replicate that. Right?
Oh.
Does that make sense? Right. Where they'll be like, I'll never do the same set. And it's like, now you need to do
because Robin Williams did it. That's got to be the secret to success. No, that little thing should have killed him, but because he's Robin Williams, it made him. Gary Vaynerchuk,
mm-hmm.
he came and spoke for our industry event years ago, and it was a small room. I didn't know who he was. Now I'm a big fan, but he was dropping the F-bomb all over the place. And I was like, who is this guy? Who does he think he is? But this is Gary V, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
So they are one of one.
Yeah.
And there are career killers that can become career makers.
Wow.
But only if it's so ingrained in who the person is that getting away from it would make them inauthentic.
Makes sense.
Then you got to do that. Robin Williams couldn't have done the same set twice because he couldn't control his brain. His creative brain, Kelly, right, was just such a wonder of the world. Like, and the fact that he he probably wouldn't be able to remember a whole set where it
Yeah,
went,
that's
or
true.
respect where it went, just because he's like, no, actually this moment calls for this, so I'm going to do this. I know exactly what this moment calls for, because they're, obviously someone who does that can read a room. And um yeah, so I even say, like, there's no two speakers that have become successes the same way that I've ever seen.
I think it's refreshing to hear because most of the time, a person in your scenario, well, I think you're in a class of your own, but in your situation, most of the time, people just try and systemize and put people into
Oh,
that
we are
part
in
of
an
it.
absolute epidemic of systemizing greatness right now.
Yeah.
And it is, it keeps me up at night.
Hmm.
It really does. Yeah. And I'm not better than anybody, but I just have seen the beauty of this industry when it was much more pure and simple. And I think we're getting back to that. Like, I think your little image of, a terrible video of the CEO just turning his phone camera around and saying, I just, always had a dream to provide for my family. That speaks to the generations that are coming. Like the gloss and polish stuff, even our generation is kind of side-eyeing this whole thing, going, that looks too good. Like, I'd like to see a little more rough around the edges, because I feel like what I'm getting is a really sanitized version of whoever this person is. So I feel like we're getting back to the basics. Event planners, actually, I've had two different bureau agents tell me that event planners are asking them for a full-length presentation. They're like, no sizzle reel, just the full length.
Wow.
That's what we want to see. And I'm like, okay, let's go. Here
Let's
we
go.
go. Because that's the way we used to sell speakers.
Wow. So
Hmm.
when, like, and I know I've got to get you to your next appointment. I've got two last questions for you. One is when does it, when is it okay to take a risk? I was talking with Mike Ganino the other day, right?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
he's such a cool guy. And do you know the
We go
connection
we
point?
go so far back.
Do you know the
Like,
connection point with him and I?
no.
So Mike Ganino used to be a client of our salon in Chicago.
Oh, awesome.
How crazy, right?
Oh,
So I just had him on the podcast, which was amazing. We were talking about it, and we were talking about risk and reward and stuff like that. I'm a huge fan of comedy,
yeah.
massively. I'm not as much like I love the craft of speaking, but Tim Story is a good friend. He told me that he doesn't listen to any speakers. He only listens to comedians because he just goes for timing and he doesn't want anyone
Oh,
else's style to rub off on him. Right. And
good
Tim's
for
one of
him.
the
That's a
best,
really, I like that. That's cool.
and Tim is one of the best to ever do it. Um, but so I love comedy, but what I find myself doing at times is risking, right? So I want to try this thing and see if this joke will land. And if it lands, it's going to be a
It's a
earthquake.
keeper.
And if it doesn't, like I'm literally jumping off a cliff. When, 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 when is it okay in your mind to take a risk that way?
Oh, well, not when someone's hired you for a job. I mean, if you're on a stage and they're paying you to be there, you better deliver your job 10 out of 10, or then you've failed your client. You've failed the person who hired you. You're
Right.
hired for a job, so you better perform.
Yeah.
So you workshop it in front of people. It, yeah. Small risks are okay, but only if they don't jeopardize the whole thing. You've got to test new jokes and stories. You've got to test them on real live audiences, or else you're not going to know. But Jay Leno used to go down to the comedy club at Hermosa Beach, and do his set for the Tonight Show. Uh, I want to say Wednesday, and then I'm getting the story wrong, but I know that he rehearsed his set at the Hermosa Beach, like the comedy club
Oh, wow.
down there. Because I have friends who live around there, and we got to walk through, and they're like, yeah, he workshops his sets down here. And I want to say it's like multiple times a week, or when he was doing it. So even he, like, before going on live TV, and that's just a one-off, right? These sets, but he would rehearse them in front of a live audience.
Hmm.
So to the best of your ability, tell these stories to speaker friends and say, does this land for you? Or do you have any recommendations? Like, do it, like, say it for mere mortals and say, does this story have any resonance with you? And then you've got to test it. You've got to test it in your speech, of course. It's tough when you do a whole new speech. I know speakers get very nervous before they do a whole new speech, and rightly so, because you just kind of, like, hope this works. But hopefully you would follow it. Like Nancy Duarte wrote a book called Resonate. I've got it right here. Come on, Christa. Yep, there it is. I can pull out books too, you know. Here it is. Can you see it?
Yes.
Resonate by Nancy Duarte. So she recommends 30 hours of 30 hours of preparation every time you do a speech. Oh, wow. So if you're doing a new speech, you got to do it probably 30 times.
That's amazing. It's funny because I had I read the corresponding proverb, corresponding day. And so Proverbs 8 today, I got to workshop it on my dog walk to my neighbor. And then we had our men's group. And then, but it makes sense. It absolutely makes sense as far as the workshopping and working through, because you almost curate it. I did tell you, I just had one more question for you. I started the podcast because of my two kids, Maddox and McKenna. And Maddox is all sports, marches to the beat of his own drum. He has what's called Maddox style. So it's just wear whatever you want, when you want, and however you want.
Very good.
One time I told him, hey, son, your sweats are on backwards. And I said, go back in and change them. He came back out. They were still backwards. I said, why didn't you change them? And he looked at me and he's like, well, if I see some, I said, what are you going to do if somebody makes fun of you? He said, if somebody asks me why my pants are on backwards, I'll just ask them why they're wearing theirs forward. And then he just moved on. So that's his personality. My daughter is in the performance arts, singing, dancing, the theater, choir, all those things. I started the podcast because I didn't want them to worship idols. I just wanted them to be inspired by iconic people like yourself. So what advice would you have for Maddox and McKenna? And if you could call yourself Auntie Christa, it would be awesome.
Oh, sure. Well, that's too close to Antichrist. So let's go with Aunt Christa. Okay? If it's okay with you. Okay. In fact, my nieces and nephews call me Tia. Okay. So we're going to go with Tia.
Tia Christa.
And there's this, Tia. How old are your kids?
13 is Maddox and 16 is McKenna.
My advice to any kids at any age, but I'm going to say because they are teenagers, bad company corrupts good character. Surround yourself with people that you aspire to be, not people that aspire to be you. And you will live a very long, happy, and prosperous life if you are able to die to yourself and love the people around you.
Christa, you're way better than advertised. I'm just going to ask you if you can. way better than advertised. And you're advertised pretty damn good. Like your digital footprint is like unmistakable, but
yeah, I'm pretty good at that.
You're damn good at it. You're the best at it. But also too, up close and personal, you're better. And that's hard to do based off of how good you are digitally. And
you're very cool. Well, back at you, man. Your digital footprint is like, it actually, the reaction that I had when I saw you was exactly the reaction that I want bureaus, agents, planners, or anybody to have when I launch a speaker. And it's, how have I not heard of this person?
Wow. Thank you. That means the world. Can you do me one big favor? Just one big favor. We're going to run a commercial. It'll be 45 seconds. Can you stick on for 45 seconds? And then because I just want to say something to you, that I won't record. But I would love to be able to say that. Does that sound good?
Yeah, of course. This has been super fun.
And I'm going to ask, will you be on the show again? Because I think it would be cool to have you as a correspondent that comes back every month or two, where we can talk about these things because you're constantly workshopping and getting better.
I am. Listen, if it's of value to the people who watch your podcast, I'll be on as much as you want me to.
I love it. I love it. Christa, you're incredible. You're officially off the hot seat. Peace, love, and soul.
Achieving, cause we believe in it's for certain. We put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting.